How's it going, everyone? So the fourth player that we're going to look at that the Packers have invited for a top 30 visit of theirs is defensive lineman Michael Hall Jr. out of Ohio State University. So currently, Michael Hall is ranked as the 57th overall best player in this draft on the consensus draft board and is the 6th best defensive lineman in this year's draft according to the consensus draft board. Now, for his measurables, he comes in at 6'3" and 290 pounds, so he's a bit on the leaner side. But he had a RAS score of a 9.24, so a very high RAS score. Now, most of his testing, or pretty much all of his testing, has actually come on his pro day and not at the NFL draft or the NFL combine. He was invited to the combine, but in preparation for it, about towards the late of February, he did pull his hamstring, so he was unable to go at the combine. But he was ready by March 20th for the Ohio State's pro day. So at his pro day, he ran an unofficial 4.78 40-yard time, which gave him a grade of a 9.88, had a vertical jump of 33 inches and a broad jump of 9 feet and 3 inches, and was able to do the bench press 24 times. So where that kind of ranks him with the 40-yard dash, considering he ran a 4.78 unofficially, that puts him at the top of all the players that ran at the combine for defensive linemen, or more specifically defensive tackles. So for defensive tackles, the fastest person was Braden Fisk at 4.78, and he was able to tie him. For the bench press amongst all defensive tackles, he is second to last with that 24 reps done. The lowest being Justin Rogers at 21 reps, and the person above him would have been Mekhi Wingo at 25 reps. So not extremely strong on that front, especially if he's going to play defensive tackle in the league. Now moving along onto the PFF side for his grades in the 2023 season, he had a defensive grade of a 77.2, which was the 92nd best defensive grade out of all the defensive linemen. Had a run defense grade of 69.5, which put him at 346. Pass rush grade of 84.8, which made him 16th best out of all defensive linemen. Now, moving along towards his stats, he spent 3 years at Ohio State. So in his first year, he only played in 2 games and had 2 total tackles, 1 tackle or half a tackle for loss, and that's it. In his second year, he played in 12 games, had 19 total tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and 1 fumble recovery. Then in his final year, he played in 12 games, had 24 total tackles. His tackles for loss did drop a bit and only had 2 tackles for loss and had 1.5 sacks. Now, just because his statistics did drop from his second to the third year, apparently when you actually did watch him, he was disruptive on a lot of plays, and they pretty much cued more and shifted the offensive line towards him to stop his disruptiveness, which is why his stats actually went down. It's not indicative to him not doing as well. It's more he was more focused on part of the game plan, so he didn't wreak havoc on the offense. So now for the positives of Michael Hall. He's quick off the ball and agile, which combined with efficient footwork makes him dangerous when slanting. He has impressive upper body strength and long arms to get extension against offensive linemen when he gets his hands up quickly. Has the strength to shed blocks and has a dirty arm over move to escape and makes tackles against the run. Can be effective with a bull rush when he keeps his pads down, sets up his finesse moves well by getting to square on the offensive lineman, and has a decent movement skills to build on his pass rush arsenal, and can develop a club by move as a pass rusher, and has the strength and has used it a few times to defeat blocks against the run. So he pretty much overall has good athletic ability and is able to shed blocks very well, especially when pass rushing. But as for the negatives on Michael Hall, he has a bit of a tweener body, so he's a little bit too big for the defensive end, but a bit too small on the defense to be a defensive tackle. So depending on who drafts him, if it's the Packers, he'll probably, I feel like, be more of a defensive tackle, considering some of our 3-4 linebackers or edge rushers are going to transition to a 4-3 defensive end. Probably have a little bit more need on the defensive tackle, so I feel like if we drafted him, he would gear towards there, and he'd have to put on a little bit more mass to play defensive tackle. He plays with his hands down by his waist, which exposes his chest against the run and limits his pass rush arsenal, still learning how to use his hands when rushing the passer. He has subpar block recognition. He's late to react to blocking schemes, which will put him out of position. Also doesn't anticipate double teams or down blocks, leading to him getting washed inside. Has a habit of standing up out of his stance, reducing the effectiveness or consistency with his bull rush, and conditioning could use some work. Often runs out of gas towards the end of the game. And some of these, or really a lot of these negatives, are very correctable, and it's just getting the fundamentals down and learning and coaching. Using his hands better, coaching. Getting a little bit bigger to play defensive tackle, that's pretty much going with the coach and figuring out a plan to gain some mass. Learning how to recognize certain blocks, coaching. Stop standing up, coaching. So a lot of this can be coached, and he already has a decent core on being able to attack as a pass rusher. So there is a lot of potential with him. So for the Packers, it makes a bit of sense to bring him in. You can never have enough pass rushers. We're going to a 4-3. And we would need some more defensive tackles potentially along that front. So bringing him in, try to figure out where he's at, especially since he did have a pulled hamstring. So he didn't test at the combine. Bring him in for their own personal workouts and, figure out more about him. Makes a lot of sense for the Packers. Now, he is slated to kind of be a round 2, round 3 pick. And there's a bit of players to where we previously looked at where like the cornerback, we could also go for him. We do have a lot of picks, so it's going to be still interesting how this draft falls to us. But some people do think he could be a shocker and get picked towards the end of round 1, which I don't think the Packers should do or even reach. If a team wants to reach for the end of round 1, then good for them. But he shouldn't be picked at the end of round 1. It's more of like a late round 2 pick, early round 3 pick for us if we were to go for him. But let me know what you think down in the comments. If you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, go Pack Go.